Awesome.
Yes.
All right, so for this group, looks like everybody's going to be doing their physical inventory next week. So we do have a couple different locations that are just showing either parts that we hadn't count before, or they're showing our VP4 parts. So we are going to be sending a couple notes on those NAs just to see if we can figure out why it shows that they have some inventory and if it's possibly somewhere else. But this is currently our plan. Is everybody aligned to this plan? Does everything look good here for you guys?
I don't see a lot of the Miratex on there. Is
Oh,
that
this is just a striker training.
okay?
We'll do
Okay.
one with
Okay.
Mira later on. Yep. Yeah, there's a whole group
I
of
was
other techs out that we'll be doing.
okay because I was like, man, that's a lot of names are missing. Right.
Yeah. No, yeah, we'll be doing one with MSAR and Valley, Mira, and Nolan as well. So those will all come kind of differently. But all right, so I'll get right into the calendar first, and then we'll go through kind of the training on and how it all works. The calendar is a big part of it. So this is actually the calendar that we use when we're doing Neptune parts. We're talking lots and lots of parts when we're doing Neptune. So as you can see, it spans over a week with a lot of that work coming from our team. So there's a key on this, which you can't see, but the things that matter the most to you guys are going to be those green colors. That's going to be you guys. Anything that's in that pinkish color is my team. And then we have some other teams that do a little bit of work for us. But for this physical inventory, it is going to be a little bit more compressed because we don't need as much time organizing our inventory and counting our inventory. So I will give you some information there. So for this last week, we have been looking at work orders, making sure everything is getting received in, making sure everything looks good systematically, and we've been doing a good amount of prep the last couple days. The biggest thing that we really want to make sure you guys are paying attention to is this Sunday lock time frame. So we want to make sure all shipments have been received in. You probably have gotten some emails from Trish or Christina, or they might just even receive items in for you because it's showing in the system it's been shipped to you, and then we'll fix it during physical inventory. But we want to make sure that you've got everything received into your location, and we want to make sure that all work orders have been submitted. And so that they're at a specific state, because Sunday everything is frozen. So I'll start pulling all of your inventory data together on Sunday I'm going to probably start at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon to give you some time. So this said 7, but if we could get everything to that frozen state at 5 o'clock, that'll make a big difference for us to be able to do physical inventories on Monday. So getting everything to that frozen state is key because everything is systematic, right? So when we're doing a physical inventory, we're looking at the two different systems we live in. We live in SAP. We also live in ServiceMax. Our finances show in SAP, but ServiceMax has all of the movement. It's got the work orders. It's got everything else that's going on. So we do a combination of both to make sure that they look good. The math there is always going to be SAP equals ServiceMax plus work orders. So we have to make sure ServiceMax plus work orders kind of give us that finance piece on the SAP side, if that makes sense to everybody. So just getting everything to a frozen state makes that calculation a lot easier because there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of data that goes into that to make sure that everything looks good so that we come out of this really clean. So we'll come into Monday. You will have your physical inventory sheets, which I'll go over with you here shortly, in your inbox by the end of the day, Sunday. So I'll show you really quick what that will look like. Justin just got his because he's doing his a little bit early. So it'll just be an email from me. Your manager will be on it, as well as the field team, so that if they need to step in, if I'm not around, then they can step into this. But it'll be your physical inventory sheet that you're going to work on. It's very simple. This is the email that you're going to send back to us once your physical inventory is done. And we want to make sure the managers are just making sure things are flowing. That's why they're on it. If you have any problems, if you're running into, hey, this is going to take longer than it needs to, just make sure you're using this email chain so that we're kind of on the same page. And if you can, reply all when you're sending an email instead of just sending it to me. That can cause some problems as well. So that'll get sent to you on Sunday. Monday, we're going to combine Monday and Tuesday. So you're going to be organizing your inventory and then making sure you're doing the count on the same day. So getting all of that done, no work can be done on that Monday timeframe, but we want to be able to get you back into working Tuesday, so as quickly as possible. So we really want everything to be frozen during that time frame. So we'll make sure everything gets received and we make sure everything looks good on that Sunday and today. And then you'll have your stuff, you do your count, you submit it back to us through that email chain. And then we're going to start working on reconciliation. What that looks like is we just take what SAP says you have, what ServiceMax says you have, open work orders that you have, and then what you say you have. We do the math between all of it, and we basically say SAP needs to equal this, ServiceMax needs to equal this because of the work orders you may have open and what you told us that you had. So we'll do that reconciliation. The girls then actually have to go into the system and make those changes. So there's a piece of analysis that we do. It's very quick. You can do the math pretty quickly. The girls then go in and they do that in the system. They just check a couple things and they know way more than I do. So they can kind of pick out some nuances that look a little funky. We may have questions for you guys. So those would be on that Tuesday timeframe. We need you to send it back to us no matter what by close of day Monday. Let us know if you can't. Tuesday, we're going to be working on reconciliation. We're going to try to get those done as quickly as possible. And that's when any questions would come back your way. And then once we get that reconciled, we will send in that same email chain a note to you to say, hey, you're good to go. You're unfrozen. Once you're in that unfrozen state, you can push work orders through normally. You can do all of that. So if you are going to go do work, which is perfectly fine, you just can't put your work orders through the system until you get that unfrozen stamp of approval. The other thing I want to make sure that everybody pays attention to as well is when they're frozen, you got to remember what parts you had in your inventory when you did the PI. So the PI is that frozen state. If you went to go do work, you put some inventory into the work that you were doing. Just make sure that you know that inventory amount. So if we come back to you and say, hey, how much did you have on this one? Can you do a recount on that? You need to be able to remember that, hey, this is the count that I did. It's this, what I physically have right now, plus whatever I left at that account. Any questions on the calendar currently? And as you can see, it's not going to look exactly like this. It is going to look a little bit shorter. We're hoping to be done with reconciliation on Tuesday. This was because we were doing about 50 texts a week when we were doing Neptune, and we were doing a lot more parts.
Looks good to me.
Awesome. All right. So the next big step will be our overall location. So once again, Justin, this is your location. It's what you just received. So this will be the sheet that you get sent to you. And there's a couple things about this sheet. So like I said, what we're pulling to give you the note of what we believe you have is going to only be what you show in SAP. So we'll come back to that calculation. SAP equals ServiceMax plus work orders. It is your overall picture. So do not fret if you look at something and say, oh, I just left some of that inventory on a work order. That's okay. It's because ServiceMax doesn't know that, or sorry, SAP doesn't know that yet. So it's still showing in your inventory systematically. When we pull your work orders into this sheet and we do the analysis, we'll see that. We still got to keep it in SAP because it hasn't pushed through yet, but we will note that you don't physically have that anymore. So don't worry about this. This is really just supposed to say, what do you actually have on hand? And let's get that cleaned up. So there are a couple changes compared to our Neptune physical inventory. We are no longer showing the team members what we show systematically you have. We had a lot of issues during the Neptune PI where team members were just saying, yeah, that looks good. And then later on realized they had more or less. So we really want you to do a blind count. And so what I mean by a blind count is do not come to the sheet and say, all right, the RAM 206007, let me go find that part and then say, yeah, I've got 10 of them, and work your way down the sheet. We really want you to go to your inventory location, start from left to right, up to down, or however that works for you, and go through each physical part that you have and bring it back to the sheet. That's what an actual blind count looks like, because just because we show you having it systematically, you might not have it, but just you might have something physically that's you're not showing systematically. So you're going to see the full picture if you do that in that blind count way where you're just looking at your physical inventory. So this is going to be what we show you have physically. What you'll just do at the end, you can see you can't click around in here. This is going to be locked down, and that's because we don't want you to make any changes to these parts or anything like that. All you can do is just tell us how many do you have and any notes that you have if you want to add something into there. So for this SKU, you would possibly just say I have 0 of these, I've got 5 of these, so on and so forth. If you get to a serialized part number, sometimes this gets confusing for team members where they want to say, yeah, I have 3 of these. Serialized, you can only have 1. So the answer can only be 1 or 0. And that's obviously because we only can have 1 per serialized part. So you can see the serialized numbers here that we show you have systematically, even though you might have 3 of that part, and that might kind of get, as you're going down the line, that might get confusing. You should only show that you have 1 of each one of those. And so if you do send something in that says, hey, yeah, I've got 5 of these, that's going to be immediately, we're going to have to send it back to you and ask some questions, which slows down the whole process of us being able to get reconciliation done. So if you can pay attention to that, that makes a big difference. So like we said, and also same thing for batch, obviously batch, you can have more than just that, but your batch would show up here as well. But like we said, you probably will have some parts that are you have physically that aren't systematically. So those would be the things that you'd want to add. And so to add anything, you can't add anything into this sheet. It can only be added onto this page. And so what you would do is put your material. What I will do, and Justin, I apologize, I'll send this to you, but I will have a list of all parts and descriptions so that you can do a copy and paste. I know that you guys, everybody talks in material description, and that makes sense. But for systematic, we really need it to be the actual part number. So this needs to be the part number of the part that you have. Let us know what serial number it is. Let us know the batch. Once again, if it's a serial number, it can only equal 1. So that's a quick way for us to have to come back to you. If you say, hey, yeah, this is the serial I have and I've got 10 of them. Okay, do you just want to add or what have you? We really need to understand that a little bit better. On a side note as well, if you had this part, right, and we show that you have 3 of these, but you wanted to add a serial, we saw a lot of times that the PI count ended up being 4, and they added 1 on. Realistically, we still want you to just say 1 on this sheet. I'm trying to add 1 of this serial onto this overall count, giving me a total of 4. And then any notes that you have. So it should be pretty simple. Off to the side, I will have all part numbers and all descriptions so that you can do a quick copy and paste over into the material number, if that makes it a little bit easier for adding anything.
I do have one question for you,
Sure.
Carly, and I'm
Yeah.
sure I know the answer. We deal with kits like the Sterilink delivery kit or the ozone monitor assembly kit, and we break those kits apart to use them as service parts. We have to consume the whole kit to do a service call. You do not want those parts that we have saved out of that kit in this inventory, correct?
Are they actual part numbers? Like, so for instance, if you had a kit, if this was the kit and then these were the 5 parts that went into that kit, are they actual part numbers in the system?
The only one that would be the ozone monitor. That's the kit number for that would be RAS 207002, and the ozone monitor to be RCM 207002. So if we broke one of those kits apart, would you want that ozone monitor and its serial number entered into that text inventory?
Yes. So I think I gotta confirm with Ian, but I was under the impression we weren't supposed to do that anymore. Now, from my standpoint, what I picture it's a sub in my mind, and I'm using a piece of that sub. So what we would do is cycle count down the overall sub, cycle count up the components that are in the sub, and that works from my standpoint because what I'm looking for is what do you physically have, and if you're going to end up using those components that are a part of the sub on a work order, we need to be able to make sure that inventory is accurate to be able to consume off of that work order.
Okay. But like our sterile delivery system kit, all the parts that are in that kit, they do not have service part numbers assigned to the individuals
Yeah,
kits.
so then unfortunately we would have to say that you don't have those parts anymore. What I don't understand, I guess if that was the case, do you still like put that part on a work order even though you don't have all of the parts in that kit?
What we have been doing in the past is we contact Justin Hollard in quality, and we put all that information in the special instructions with the part number, and then he writes an NC for that repair.
Okay.
Oh,
So, yeah, so what we would end up doing is I say we would cycle count that out. Once you get the NC approval, we would have to then cycle count in the part and then you could consume it. But we would want to make sure that quality is aligned to that before we cycle count them in.
right.
Yep. So yeah, so we would, if you only have pieces of that kit, it would be 0 for that instance.
Okay. I just
Yep,
wanted to make sure that guys didn't count like the new valves and the new barcode scanner and stuff like that, because if they do, they're just going to get themselves more and more confused.
for sure. Yep. No, that's a great call out.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions on the sheet?
So I have got I guess what I would consider a tool. We run a test where you have to put a jumper into a little slot to run the test, and it comes in a bag and has a part number RAE 213005. And I definitely consider that more of a tool. We will pretty much never consume it because it's always for us to use. But do we need to put that in our inventory?
Yeah, it would to me it would kind of remind me there's two options there. It would remind me of like a blade and burr that we don't consume and we just kind of remove from inventory when it goes there. Christina, Trish, let me know if I'm way off there, but I would say we don't count those and we cycle count those out of the system unless there's a reason for us to need to know that you have them on hand.
Okay, thanks.
Christina, Trish, just want to make sure you guys, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that
Okay.
because it can't be consumed anyway. So,
Yeah. There's a piece of me that like it from the power side, like we want to know they can't consume core consoles, but we want to know that they have it. I don't think we need to know your tool count. So yeah, I would say we just count those as 0.
Okay, will do.
Any other questions? Awesome. All right. Well, we'll come back to the calendar. So once you're done with your physical inventory, you've put all your information into it, you're going to send it back to us on that email chain. We're going to complete the reconciliation. We'll let you know if we have any questions. Once you're unfrozen, we'll send it back to you on that email chain as well, and then you'll be free to go and everything is reconciled. The only note that I will say, if I'm honest, we don't know what we're walking into with this TSO3 physical inventory. So we will have a couple different things that we are going to try to put in place when it comes to overall loss. If it's a huge loss, which my gut says we're probably going to take, but I don't know that for sure. We may come back to you and say, hey, can you just do another count? Just make sure you're not missing anything. I always say the organization piece is going to be key to make sure we don't have to do that. And if you feel like you've been very organized and you really did get everything like that, and we come back to you and say, hey, can you do another count? It's okay to say, promise super organized. This is just what it is. We haven't done a physical inventory since we've given these parts out. So no, it can be messy. But that might be the only other thing that we would reach out on. And other than that, that's really the overall process. So any questions on how all of that works?
One question I do have for you, if we have a part, and I'm just gonna pick a, like the, micro pump assembly for the old style, if it's in our inventory and it's broke, just write that it's been broken and we're gonna scrap it out anyways.
Yeah, so we would want to scrap that because it's been broken. And the only call out I'd say there is when we cycle count out inventory, that's considered a loss. We do want to actually do a scrap transaction for that inventory. To note to the quality team members that we've been seeing scrap on that part. So it is a completely different transaction. So what I would call out on your physical sheet, you can put in there, oops, sorry, let me go back to Justin's. Maybe you can put in there, I've got 3 pieces, 2 good, 1 needs to be scrapped, or whatever you want to do there. And then we'll scrap that out. Christina, Trish, you guys aligned to that plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? All right. Appreciate your guys' time today. Please continue to just talk to us and ask any questions that you have if you run into anything on Monday. Once again, we'll have all those sheets out to you by the end of the day on Sunday. And then just keep us in the loop if there's anything that's not working the way you'd like it to. But we appreciate your time and let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.